Hello, SBI Nation. This is Doug Bain. I am a managing director and the healthcare practice leader here at SBI. And today we have with us Milton Silva-Craig, who is the CEO of Q-Centrix. And we're going to be talking today about kind of the necessary adaptations that people are going through amidst this crisis and what the approach has been at Q-Centrix. So Milton, welcome.
Thank you, Doug. Glad to be here.
Great. Could you tell us just for the audience a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your company?
Sure. My background, I've been in healthcare IT the past nearly 30 years, mostly working with hospitals directly on technology, data, and services. A little bit about our company, Q-Centrix. We help hospitals manage their quality data reporting. That's really in sort of two primary areas. CMS, the federal government, asks hospitals who get Medicare reimbursement to report on how they are doing in certain clinical areas like stroke and heart failure, et cetera. And then professional societies, think of American College of Cardiology or American Heart Association. They have registries where quality data is provided so that hospitals can benchmark their performance. Our business is to provide the abstraction capability. So we have the quality experts. They work from home, they remotely log into hospitals' information systems, abstract that data, analyze it on the behalf of the hospitals, and then that data is sent to whichever constituent needs that information. And so we help hospitals improve their overall quality.
Great. Well, so your customers are the hospitals.
That's correct.
So talk about having your customers on the front lines in the midst of this crisis. That is an understatement for sure. So before we go into how you all have responded and how you've adapted to this and having your customers so caught up in this, tell me a little bit about, let's go back to when did you first start to see and anticipate what sort of an impact there was, and what was kind of what was the information that was coming your way? What were you observing?
Well, yeah. Interestingly enough, I'll start on a personal side and then how that related to the business side. My middle son is a senior in college and he was studying in Spain. And so my wife and I were in Spain in February. And that's about the time that we were hearing that Italy was starting to experience kind of the shutdown. Certainly we knew what was going on in China, but I think we all sort of felt, oh, that's an issue in China. It's not going to sort of find its way. And then we're in Spain visiting our son, and it's in Italy, and we're like, this is starting to take on a different perspective. Fast forward, he and all students in Europe were forced to come back, so we now have them all at home. But I think it was probably in that kind of early March timeframe where we started to actually realize in conversations with customers that there was something there. I think there was a little bit of frankly, a bit of denial and not a full appreciation, certainly not what we know 30 days later. I think 30 days ago, I think we were all, hey, do we need to change some practices here? But it wasn't the sort of intensity that we're experiencing right now by any means.
So at some point, the intensity shifted. And I assume all the conversations you're having with your hospital customers changed.
You know, it literally has been day by day. Originally, where we were not seeing specific implications to our business, our first worry was our team members, our associates, their safety and well-being. And so what we initially in March contemplated is, do we need to implement a work from home, a social distancing model? So that really was kind of the genesis, because our customers were not indicating to us that their volumes were going to decline as a result of this. Now, I would tell you from about March 10th through kind of the third week of March, so I think just in a 2-week period of time, the intensity changed. And then the federal government got involved, and they let our customers know that they did not have to report their quality measures because of their attention to COVID. And so that's kind of when the warning lights went off, if you will, that things were intensifying at an incredible velocity. But mind you, that happened in a 2-week period of time.
Yeah. Yeah, things have been changing very fast, and faster in your case than most, I think. that's a pretty dramatic move when suddenly the federal government says you don't really need these services anymore right now.
Yeah, and that's just as a frame of reference, that's about 25% of our revenues. So the first thing that came to mind was 25% of your revenues will literally turn off overnight. That was the fear that we had. Now, there were a series of activities that we implemented. We don't have that perspective, but mind you, I got that information on a Sunday because it was Sunday afternoon, and my whole paradigm shifted on what do we now need to do.
So tell us a little bit about that. So you had to change gears radically. What was your thought process? Who did you bring into that thought process to determine how you're going to approach your customers now?
Yeah, so the first thing was to assemble the leadership team. And again, I think we were doing all the incremental right steps, but now it's a bit of, warfare, and you have to act differently. And so literally that Sunday afternoon, we implemented 2 times a day check-in, just with the broader leadership team. So I have 5 direct reports, and then the extended leadership team is about another 10 to 15. And so we set up effectively check-in meetings at the beginning of the day and then the afternoon. That was sort of one thing. We needed to ensure that the communication that was happening so rapidly that we were fully all aware. And I think that's a general theme, listening and understanding. You just have to be more in tune to everything that's going on because you have data coming in. I've shared with the team, it's this multi-dimensional, multi-element algorithm that is not perfect. And so you're just constantly trying to manage information. But the first thing was we as a team had a framework to communicate effectively. Number 2 was to reach out to our customers, engage our customers to understand empathetically what they were going through, how they were reflecting on the decision process. And then equally as important, Doug, was how could we help? And that's an important theme that we've communicated internally. And the metaphor is turning from a transaction orientation to a community orientation. So in transaction, I sell you goods, you in turn buy those goods, and we exchange dollars. When you move to a community orientation, what you're acknowledging is you're not going to get through this by yourself and in your traditional model. You have to change the framework by which you conduct your business. So number 2 was to engage our customers and really understand. And then 3, fiduciary financial responsibility and frankly, cash. Do you have the balance sheet necessary to get through what is a fog? You don't know what's going to happen. And so all of those things came together, and our decision process was protect revenue to the extent you can, engage and develop trust with your customers, and have good fiduciary financial responsibilities in place to weather the storm.
Yeah. Good. There's a lot in our framework that a lot of people out in the SBI world are following along, which is the go-to-market framework for COVID-19 support, which touches on a lot of those key elements. You have to relook at the fact base of what you have right now. That's all changed. You have to engage your community. So first thing, protect the revenue. One of the primary things, engage with the community. And I think that idea of how can you be helpful this time, because what else can you do?
Yeah. So that framework that then guided decisions in an otherwise, unknown playbook, then led to an important first step we took, which was we effectively said, stop our forward commercial selling efforts. That's everything. Our digital outreach, don't bother someone right now when they're dealing with all of this, frankly. And us is less important than what they're dealing with on the front lines. We then converted effectively our entire business development team to what we called a listening and lending a hand tour, effectively account managers reaching out and being able to, again, see how they were doing, how they were processing the information, and how could we be helpful. And I got to tell you, those were tough calls because the customers are anxious, right? They're experiencing this in the front lines. They don't know about their own safety. They don't know about the impact of their job. And we had a few of them just sort of break down just because we were there to listen, right? And those were really, I applauded the team on going through that, because that was not, that was certainly not in the playbook, but you have to adapt to the environment. And again, this communal approach is, we'll figure it out together. We're going to get through this together.
And having seen your team in operation, I mean, I know they're very committed, not just to the company, but just to the overall mission. And so I'm not surprised that they're able to establish that connection. But I'm sure it was a hard move. Again, it follows in line with the framework we've been talking about. You had to reallocate resources to where they were most needed at this time. Maybe not for the purpose they're intended, but the selling part going on right now doesn't make any sense. I'm sure everybody's had that experience right now where you're receiving some pre-scheduled email that drops in your inbox. It's trying to just keep things going along as they always were, and it's just not like that. Yeah, so especially for your audience, that's every single part of that community is feeling it intensely. That was an important move.
Yeah. And, many of our team members, as you know, we employ about 1,000 what we call quality information specialists, and they're commonly nurses, clinically trained, and many of them had worked in the hospitals. And so they have friends, they have family members on the front lines, and they're experiencing that same level of anxiety, just like I do. I have two brothers who are, in the healthcare field on the front lines. I'm a son of two 80-year-old plus parents, and worried about them, and overseeing over 1,000 people and who are really important to you. And so there's just, you have your days, and we're all experiencing. It's all normal. There's anxiousness, there's uncertainty. I would say there's a resilience, though. Like, when you empower your organization at a communal level, you're not powerless, right? You have a meaningful role in helping out, the nation at large, and that's really humbling and makes you proud.
How long has this kind of listening and learning and helping hand initiative been going on now?
I just did an update to the team, and we're just finishing up week 3 of kind of this effort. So next week will be effectively a month that we've been operating. And the other thing it's important to know is what someone might tell you 2 days ago can literally change, because they're dealing with the same uncertainty and the imperfect data, and the hospital infrastructure and the decision making, that's all being field tested in real time under these, under this situation of duress. So what someone told us they thought was the case a couple of days ago can certainly change. And so I don't think you ever stop that. We have no intention of it. We don't want to be overbearing, but we want to ensure that the lines of communication remain open and they're fluid. We appreciate that.
Has some of the feedback or the culmination of it that's been coming through over the last 3 weeks changed your approach? Have you kind of iterated and modified messaging or communication, or are you just trusting your people to reach out and be helpful in the way they know how?
A few of those calls, the tough ones, I think what we realized is we needed to even maybe pull back in our reach out and even kind of have the empathy out there much more so than we thought we already otherwise had. So I think we certainly learned from that. We certainly learned that in many cases they did not know. They just didn't have a perspective, and so being able to appreciate that, and then at the same time have a framework where you could follow up, again, not feeling overbearing or being tone deaf, but that you could follow up. And also, I think what we really learned is that share the stories of what the other hospitals were experiencing, because they are somewhat myopic in just operating within their own world. But what are the other hospitals across the nation, at least our customers, what are they doing? And sharing those best practices. Just as a business leader, I have lots of friends who are running businesses, and we are constantly sharing ideas. And just like this venue here, I think it's awesome. To your SBI Nation, how do we share and learn from one another? It's really important, super important.
So when you're doing your twice-a-day check-ins with your team, and you're obviously extending a lot of empathy out there, and you're kind of being sensitive to everybody's situations. And you're all kind of sharing with each other, not just the business updates, but what everybody's going through personally too. Is that a part of the cadence?
It is. Everybody deals with stress in this environment differently. It's just human nature. And you learn a lot about your leadership team in these times. You think you know them, and put this kind of pressure on people, and different things manifest. And so as a leader, you also have to be sensitive to the environment they're going through, and how do you keep them, at the top of their game. And when people have stress, they may not be optimally, operating. So a lot of sensitivity and awareness and acknowledgement that, this is normal, right? I mean, we don't know. And so that's been very important in our communication, Doug, to be truthful, forthright. People are worried about their jobs. Well, what happens if half your customers stop sending you volumes? What are you going to do? And so we've been, you don't let people get to the scary side of the equation because you don't know. And so we've been very clear. We are not going to forecast what we don't know because it's just not good to do. What we do talk about, though, is that there's this tension. Do you move too quickly and potentially hurt the organization? Do you wait to get more information but then act too slowly? And that tension between decision-making fast and slow. And I saw a good seminar that said you got to match your decision speed to the situation at hand. Mm-hmm. So I may not have to make that particular decision today. I can literally hold off for 4 days, and 4 days in our environment may seem like, a month. But then there are some decisions you have to make today. And as people process information, there are those that are planners. They need to know, what do I have to do in the next 3 or 4 weeks? And you have to assuage them that we're not yet ready to make that decision. So let's take it one step at a time. And again, everybody acts differently. And so you as a leader need to appreciate how to help them through that.
Yeah. Well, that's, I think, especially difficult for organizations that run on a fairly tight cadence with good forecasting, and you're tight on the numbers. You always have been as a company, and all that's a little bit out the window right now. So it's a radical change for everybody.
Yeah, we're private equity owned, and they love numbers, and they like operating plans. And they've been our partner TPG has been a great partner, and they also appreciate that there's just imperfect information. They've been very supportive, and they've been very good at best practice sharing. How are others thinking through this? And again, they have the benefit of a portfolio that spans quite a spectrum, from direct to consumer, which has been more impacted, obviously, to healthcare. And even within healthcare, outpatient settings are much different than the inpatient setting, right? And so lots of different dynamics in how leaders, many have never been through anything that looks like this, how they operate.
So what are you thinking about in terms of what are you monitoring? What are you looking at that tells you maybe it's time to start moving a little bit back to normal, or whatever that might be? Something that will tell you that says, okay, we can actually start doing a little bit more of the traditional outreach, or what are you looking for that?
So we've done a couple things. Certainly the listening and lending a hand gives us real-time market data. So continue that effort. Number 2, we're monitoring, again, private equity owned, we're monitoring a lot of different financial and operational metrics, volumes, cash, et cetera. I mean, you name it, it's being tracked. Number 3, we've done some really deeper segmentation of our offering and what's occurring in the market. And by the way, in these times, innovation can manifest. All right, so let me give you an example. One of the services that we provide is something called infection prevention. We help hospitals track those patients that either presented prior or got an infection within the hospital environment. So think about COVID. tracking of COVID is really important to give a perspective at the national level of what's going on at the ground level. And so our customers, as part of our listening tour, our workforce, the clinicians, said, hey, we think that there's this opportunity, Q-Centrix, for you to play a role to help in offering a COVID tracking mechanism, a solution effectively, and standing up a solution to help the nation. So that is something that literally in the past 7 days, a team, cross-functional team has gotten together and they've stood up this idea that we're now going to, now back to the segmentation, looking at those hospitals that are in the highest sort of heat zone, if you will, that are experiencing, could we potentially and gracefully and empathetically help them as part of that effort of tracking? And so looking at, again, and you have to be super sensitive here, but we know it can help them. That we're sure of. How do you introduce that?
Right.
So anyway, long-winded answer to a lot of things you're tracking and listening to. And we all, and everybody who's listening to us, you got to be good students. You have to be eyes and ears wide open, understanding and processing a lot of real-time information to help give you some guidance on how you move forward.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's going to be an interesting theme coming out of all of this, is what are the innovations that have come out of necessity? And then how many of those last? Yeah. So that kind of leads my final question on that, which is, so crystal ball time. How do you think, coming out of this, whatever that looks like, how do you think this changes business? I think it changes your business and how you work with your clients and maybe even overall.
Yeah, I'm so proud of our team and its agility and how they've reacted to this environment. And so my message is, we're going to come out of it. Will it get worse before it gets better? Is it going to be a few months? Is it going to be a few quarters? Will the business look the same or different? And I think possibly the answer to all those questions is yes. But what I am certain of is we will come out a better version as a result of all of this than where we were today. And I think we're an amazing company. Back to your kind of crystal ball question. Again, one approach we've taken is we're just not doing that forecasting because of our imperfect information. What we are doing is continuing to listen and understand. But I do think a couple things will just realistically change. I actually think it's going to bring, this may sound Pollyannic, but the nation together more tightly. I think it will certainly bring the healthcare quality community, our community, together more tightly. Because again, back to this community orientation, people will have done extraordinary things and lend a hand, and I think that will drive a different model. One thing for sure that I hope, frankly, comes out of this is the preparedness. Hospitals have not been prepared for that. That is evident. To the extent that we, as a community, can play a role to help them be prepared for whatever that is in the future, and hopefully, God willing, we don't experience that, but there could be something. And so the preparedness and being thoughtful about that, I think is really important as we come out of this.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Well, thank you. Thank you for your insights and for sharing your experience with us. For everybody out there in SBI land, those who haven't already joined the Inspire Others LinkedIn community, it's a chance to share what you're learning, what you're seeing, and really a way for kind of all of us to help each other out. So you might want to consider that. And if we or anybody else in this organization can be of service to you, please do. Again, Milton, thank you, and best of luck to you ahead.
I appreciate it, and I hope you and the whole SBI community are safe and well. Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much.